back again for week 2 of our comeback. Happy Sunday. I am currently headed to the gym. I got Hank in the back. I figured today, because we are 1 week, actually only 6 days, so less than a week, 6 days out from the Open. It's happening next week, the start of the 2020 season. I figured today I would talk about how I feel about the changes to the games, how I feel about the new Open, and kind of what all that means for my goals. When these changes started happening last year, a lot of you guys were asking me how I felt about it, and I kind of intentionally didn't react. That's just because it was hard to have an opinion on any of the changes until we saw how it fully affected the 2019 season. Now that's happened. Now I have kind of gathered my thoughts and I have more solidified feelings about it all. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and we're just going to keep preparing for the Open, which is next week, which is wild, and I'm not ready. Hey gang, oh, there's a terrible glare in my glasses, huh? Okay, well I guess so that you don't have to stare at this awful glare over my eyeballs, I'll just take my glasses off. Good morning, I just woke up. Hope I don't look like garbage. So, I can't tell if I'm not in focus or if I just don't have my glasses on. I think I'm in focus now. Okay, so I guess the easiest way to do this, because so much has happened, is to go in chronological order. So the first change was the Open. Structurally, I don't know if that's the right word, but you guys know what I mean. Not much has changed about the Open other than the qualifying process. Obviously that's changed, but that affects 0 of us. Unless I've got Games athletes watching these videos, but I really doubt it. So really, I think the major change we all felt with the Open was the live broadcasts, of course. They just weren't as good. I mean, that's me being honest. That's, I think, something everybody knows. They just weren't as good. I think that's for a few reasons. One, there's bound to be some growing pains as we adjust to these changes. Unfortunately, the Open announcements were just one of those things. And 2, obviously, as much as we all thought Dave Castro was a prick, he was very good at what he did. And I think a lot of us felt his absence. But anyway, we don't do the Open for the live announcements. You know, as much as we all loved watching the live announcements, like that's not why we do the Open. We do the Open for a million other reasons. And for 90% of us, those reasons shouldn't have changed. The other 10% obviously are trying to qualify or we're trying to go to regionals. But let's be real, most of us doing the Open, that was not our objective in the Open. And so I really don't think that, like, hopefully the live announcements go better this year. I would love that. I think it'd be really exciting if we brought back, like, you know, the exciting Open announcements. However, that's not what the Open is about. To me, that's like such a small fraction of the Open. You know, the Open is about testing your personal growth as an athlete. The Open is about testing your personal limits as an athlete. The Open is about feeling like part of a community. You know, I think sometimes we forget that CrossFit goes beyond our box, and it is this like worldwide, like global connection that a lot of us have, and being a part of the Open is like a really cool way of being a part of that and feeling that, you know. So I still did the Open even though there weren't videos. And you know, the workouts, I think the workouts were still what we expect them to be, in that they were good tests and terribly painful. And I don't know, that's all I have to say about that. I guess I don't really have too many opinions on how the Open went last year, other than, you know, hopefully the live announcements go better this year, but at the end of the day, you know, that 1 hour on Thursday night is not what the Open's about. So then, chronologically, the next change would be the lack of regionals. And I thought I was gonna be really upset about this, especially as someone who wanted one day to, you know, get a team to regionals, and I went to regionals every year to watch. It's just down the road, and it was a really fun experience. And I thought I was gonna be like so bummed about there being no regionals. And I thought that CrossFit, the elite sport, was going to feel more distant from all of the ground level CrossFitters like us that are just, you know, working out in a box. I thought that regionals made being a high level competitor feel a little bit more attainable, a little bit more relatable. And so when regionals was taken away, I kind of was really bummed, and I expected to be disappointed and lose those connections to the sport. However, now after going through the full 2019 season, I disagree with myself. Or I was pleasantly surprised that that didn't happen. And it was because the lack of regionals was able to shift focus on these sanctional events. So things like Wodapalooza and Granite Games and all the other ones all over the world, those things have always been happening, right? But people didn't really pay much attention to them. Because they didn't really, I don't want to say they didn't mean anything, because of course they meant something, but I think taking away regionals and turning these other events into sanctionals allowed people to then shift their focus a little bit and kind of broaden the range of elite competition that they watch, and it highlighted these very cool events that happen all over the world all year long. And so I ended up going to Wodapalooza as a competitor. I was on a female team of 3 in the scaled division, heyo, open registration. And that was the first time I had ever attended any event outside of regionals or the games itself, and I just was like blown away. It was so much fun. I'll be honest with you guys, I had more fun at Wodapalooza than I had at the 2018 games. And it was so fun, and I felt like people were starting to pay more attention to those events. We then also qualified for Granite Games. Sam's team went, but my team ended up not going for a couple different reasons. Nothing dramatic, mostly it's just expensive to do these events all the time. It just, I don't know, I just think I like this better. I think I like this situation, this format, whatever you wanna call it, this arrangement. I think I like it better. I like highlighting all these sanctional events. I like going to these sanctional events. I like paying attention to these sanctional events. And I think taking away regionals allowed that to happen. And now it's more about like a global focus, and like people are like, okay, what sanctional can I go to next, and what one's happening next? And you know, we're paying attention to these events that are happening all over the world instead of just the one that's happening in our backyard. And they're fun to go to, and they're fun to watch. And even as like a scaled division competitor, to go and compete at one of these events is like such a cool experience. Like I never could have done that at regionals. Like I would have had to qualify at the only possible level, and like having these other divisions, like it made me feel more connected to this sport instead of less connected like I thought a lack of regionals would do. So I actually don't miss regionals at all. I think that this decision was a really great decision, and I'm excited to continue to try and qualify for some of these sanctional events. I'll get into that in a little bit, actually, though. Pause on the sanctional thing. So then the next change was the games. And I don't know, I had fun watching the games this year. I didn't go, I stayed home. I watched from the comfort of my apartment, but I enjoyed watching the games this year. I know that some people didn't like the elimination style. I didn't mind it. I don't know. I liked watching the games this year. I thought they were fun and exciting to watch. I was more excited watching this year than I was last year. Granted, last year I was like actually there. So that also was a different experience. But I don't know. I still feel like the games were exciting and successful, and they did what they always do, and that they brought the community together to watch these amazing athletes accomplish these crazy feats of skill and strength and talent and agility and et cetera, et cetera. So all in all, I'm gonna say that these changes were not a bad thing. I think the only thing I came away with last year being a little bummed about was the open announcements. But like I said, it's a small fraction of what the open even is. And it's even a smaller fraction of like what this sport is and what this season is. While it's a bummer, it's not the end of the world. Like, we will all live, and you know, now we're getting ready for the open again. I saw a couple people on Reddit being like, oh, it sucks that it's in October. I heard gyms already aren't doing Friday Night Lights and blah, 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 and this stuff. Well, and here's what I have to say to that. If your gym is not doing Friday Night Lights just because the open is happening again in October, that's because your gym sucks, not because CrossFit sucks at making decisions. Like, I'm sorry your gym doesn't want to put on Friday Night Lights, but we are. We're still just as jazzed about this open as we were about the one in March. So, like, if you're feeling any kind of hit from this in your local box, that's probably coming from the people in charge at your local box. And it's not something that the whole community is feeling. I know Strange is just as excited for this open. We're doing Friday Night Lights. We've had a countdown going. Like, all of the competitor athletes are like gearing up and ready to throw down. Like, I don't understand what the difference is just because we had to have 2 this year and now it's in October. Like, I don't know. I just think people get so worked up about stuff that, like, if you just took a step back and tried to like be positive, like, it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. Anyway, all in all, I don't think the changes were a bad thing. I think that the 2019 season was a good season, and I'm excited for the 2020 season. Speaking of the 2020 season, what does this mean for me and my goals? I kind of touched on it already when I was talking about the sanctional events and Wodapalooza and all that stuff. So my goal as a competitor now, to put it simply, is to just qualify and compete at as many of these sanctional events as I can. Obviously, there's a couple limitations. Things happen at the same time, so you have to pick and choose. It costs money to go to these events. You have to qualify. Keeping in mind those 3 limitations, my goal is to qualify and compete at as many sanctionals as possible. In which division? That's for the qualifier to determine, usually. We're definitely trying to go to Wodapalooza. We always do at least the Granite Games qualifier, whether we go or not. So we'll maybe go to Granite Games. They are adding the West Coast Classic, which is right in our backyard. It's like an hour away from us. So of course, we're gonna try and go to the West Coast Classic. Although I did see that the West Coast Classic is using the Open as a qualifying feature, and I'm not 100% sure what that means. But of course, we're gonna look into that and we'll see what that's about. We would like to go. And then, because those are all kind of like jammed around the same time of the year, we were looking at some of the summer ones, maybe international, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how the year goes. We'll see how the qualifiers go, and how the team is holding up. Obviously, another change to these or a lot of these sanctional events anyway, is that they've taken away the 3-person team, which is what I competed on last year. We had a 3-person female team. They've taken that away. Now it's only the 4-person co-ed teams. So we've kind of like mixed and matched and rearranged at the gym, and we have a tentative team together. So hopefully that works out and goes well, and I don't know, we'll just see what happens. But yeah, that's what my focus on as a athlete. Personally, my focus is on doing as many qualifiers and as many sectionals as we possibly can. Because I love to compete, and if I'm being honest, the local comps here in Southern California have kind of gone downhill and they're not that great. Anyway, what was my point? Oh yeah, just as a competitor, obviously I want to be competing, and while we do try and find local competitions, like these sanctional events are kind of like the next step up and allow you to compete at just one level up. And so, of course, that would be our goal. And so that's personally going to be my focus for the 2020 season. As a fan, I'm also excited for the 2020 season just to see what kind of growing pains and kinks have worked themselves out. I'm sure it's only going to get better, not worse. So please don't be a cranky, complaining baby. I see so much of it like, you know, I'm on the Reddit threads and whatever, and just kind of like in the community, and I think if we all just stopped having opinions on what CrossFit should be and just like soaked it in for what it is, we would enjoy the season a lot better. But I think people hate change. And if we just learn to resist change a little less, I think you would find that we are still able to have a very fulfilling, successful, exciting CrossFit season. So that's all I have to say about that. Next week, it's the freaking Open. So obviously I'm gonna be doing Open videos again, because here I am. I'm gonna try and be uploading them on Sunday, which means you won't necessarily get my redos if I do a redo, but I'll try and maybe add those into the next week's video. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But there will be Open videos from me doing Open workouts. So we'll see how that goes. But that's all I've got for you today. Whatever the normal thing to say is here, like, subscribe, see you next week. I don't know. We'll find our way back to a good sign off. Until then, see you next week.